One visit was by Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer's up there and he's saying, we've got about 95% usage of all of the computers in China, but nobody is buying our software. And so he said, you know what we need? We need somebody who will look at this issue from the beginning to the end. My father told me when I was a little boy, he said, you're going to end up spending more time at work than you are with your family. So the important thing is you got to love your work. And if you wake up any morning and you're a little bit reluctant to go to work, it's time to get a new job. I was at that point at Microsoft, and it was sort of like, what's next? So just by chance, when I was at Microsoft, although I had a house, so Microsoft called me and they said, you have a house in Beijing, so there's really no need to have a housing allowance. I said, wait a second, you're talking to your lawyer. Do you think I'm going to buy into that? So I got my housing allowance, and I used my housing allowance to rent out this huge factory space in the 798 district. In the early 2000s, by this point, was still a factory district, and it was just, but it was cool, and it was very avant-garde, and you had artists squatting in big spaces that they could use as their studios, and that had always been kind of a dream that I had, was having a big studio space. I took my housing allowance from Microsoft and I had rented out this big factory space, and I really pimped it up. I had the best time. So when I'm at Microsoft, I'm thinking, what's next? So why did you move from Microsoft to open up an art gallery? So there had to be a story there. So I didn't open up just an art gallery. I opened up a new media art gallery. I was going to open up that space where art meets technology. And so that was the story. How could I make that transition from Microsoft to the art space? That was the way I was going to make it. And so I took my space and I went into an industry that I knew absolutely nothing about. Talked to people, I kind of studied the situation, I went around the world to other places and checked out what new media meant. I had no idea what it meant. And I opened up this space, and it opened up this whole new world for me. I had met all of these artists, and I had these really terrific exhibits in the gallery, and I learned a whole lot of new things and met a whole lot of really interesting people, because 798, at least at that point, was a magnet for innovators, not just for artists. It was for people who were innovating on everything. And so I ran the gallery for a few years, and then it was like, well, this isn't making a whole lot of money, to tell you the truth. So what's next? How do I build on top of this? So I converted my gallery into one of Beijing's first co-working spaces for innovative thinking, and kind of bringing technology, bringing in entrepreneurs. I had 42 entrepreneurs that I worked with who were doing startups. The objective was to be able to allow designers and artists to work with business people and entrepreneurs to come up with the next great thing. And that was like so exciting. I met, again, fascinating, really interesting people. And so, I'm running this incubator space, and then I turned 60. So that was a problem in China, because China doesn't welcome foreigners who turn 60. My visa was going to get canceled. What's next? What's next? So I thought about it, and I didn't want to leave Asia. I start looking around to all those places in Asia that I love. And, I went to Sri Lanka, and to Indonesia, and Malaysia, and Singapore, and to Bali in Indonesia. And then I came to a place that I've traveled to many, many times, and that was in Thailand, and particularly Chiang Mai. And so I had a really good feeling about Chiang Mai. I spent time here also, and I thought, I'm going to move here. I had a lawyer friend of a few years, and I said, I want to get a place here, and lo and behold, I get a call. I get a phone call kind of out of the blue. It was from Zach Chen. And so Zach said to me, hi, David, I don't know if you're going to remember me, but I walked into UN Fund in 798 about 6-7 years ago, and we chatted. And so I said, yeah, I remember you, Zach. He said, well, we've just done a new startup that's a blockchain fintech startup, and I'd really appreciate it if you take a look at our white paper. Now, I got involved with blockchain early on. Why? Well, because somebody I met in 798 was an American Chinese, a woman named Ming's a exceptional person, born in Switzerland, went to MIT. This is still when I'm in Beijing. Ming one day calls me up. And so Ming said, I'm looking at becoming the managing director of something called the Ethereum Foundation. So I'm busy typing away. And she goes, it's a blockchain, and this is the first time I've ever heard these words. It's a blockchain-based blah, 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 and they're, minting their own cryptocurrency. And so, I'm like looking up all these words. And so it became this, it was like, here's yet a new language, just what I need, when I'm 60. So I had gotten into learn about these new things. Vitalik Buterin, who's the head of the Ethereum Foundation, is a real Sinophile. And so he came over to Beijing and he stayed with me. My first conversation with Vitalik Buterin was on WeChat in Chinese. Vitalik is what we say, he's on the spectrum. And so Vitalik is a really interesting guy and super brilliant and, a cryptographer. The WeChat conversation was with somebody a lot more experienced because again, all of a sudden now I had to learn these Chinese words for these English words that I barely knew what they meant, like blockchain and everything. So I had gotten involved with the Ethereum Foundation. I was the first member to be on their governing board. I went to Zug in Switzerland and, kind of helped this foundation, and fascinating, a whole new world. And so I've gotten kind of interested in cryptocurrency and in blockchain. And so when I was here in Thailand, I had helped people, in reviewing their white papers and stuff. So Zach calls me in, after I'm done with my renovations on my Chiang Mai house, and Zach said that, would you take a look at our white paper? So I thought, another white paper, just what I need. So I said, sure, Zach, I'll be happy to help you. So Zach sent me this really interesting white paper. And what made the company so interesting to me was out of all of the blockchain companies that I had reviewed, it was the first company that had a tangible product. They had a product. They had a point-of-sale product, which enabled, retailers to be able to accept cryptocurrency. So, you'd be able to store your cryptocurrency on a smart card or on an app on your phone, and you'd be able to make simple purchases or any kind of purchases with cryptocurrency by having merchants, retailers, having this device. And he sent me a prototype of this device so I could hold it in my hands. Now, somebody who's an IP lawyer, I don't know if you can appreciate it, but it's really difficult sometimes I remember, trying to convince the Chinese people that something that's intangible should have a value. And so, when you're able to have something that's tangible, but its real value is in its IP, that's kind of ideal. That's an easy sell. So they had a product, and I read their white paper, and I helped them with it, and they're going to do an ICO, an initial coin offering. So, but what really sold me on this is not the first time that a company asked me to help them. And after we went through the ICO, we did quite well. Zach called me up and said, we'd really like you to join our team. Working with Chinese has a great benefit as one gets older, because unlike in Western companies where they, lock up old people or just roll them out when they can be of some type of promotional value, Chinese people do have a respect for older people who do, for wisdom. And so I thought, I'll consider it. So what was the tipping point? The tipping point was Zach Che calling me up one day, and he's in Malaysia. He's with his mom and dad, two people who speak Mandarin, but they don't speak English. So Zach introduces me, and he goes, David, 我很高兴就给你介绍一下中国父母. And so it was like, I spoke to these people in Chinese, and they were, and I said, I'm very proud of your son, and I hope you're proud of your son too for what he's doing and stuff. And so at the end of that conversation, I said, yes, Zach, I'll do it. Now, why? If I were to do a new startup now, I would do something that combines blockchain with artificial intelligence with the law.